Once again, this is the Ghetto Free Press, and the Honorable Reverend Floyd E. Rose. You've known him over the years to be a pastor, a community activist, a person of high integrity, a businessman, a family man, and definitely a civil rights giant who has paid his dues, just like Tyrone Brooks, Joseph Lowry, and others. This morning I was here in the city of Valdosta, Georgia, before I leave in a few minutes going to Gordon City Council meeting, where Mayor Ann Whipple-Lue will do the people's business. But while reading the Valdosta Daily Times, I ran across a letter to the editor. That's why I'm here. And I'm going to ask the Honorable Floyd E. Rose, this particular article, my beautiful brother, why did you write this article and what was it about?
Well, it's very simple. I was in court with a young woman who had been there for 30 days, and I discovered something interesting. Taxpayers in Valdosta and Lowndes County pay $43 a day to house inmates in the Lowndes County Jail. She had paid off her probation fees down to less than $300, yet she had been violated by a private probation company, and she was in jail already for 30 days, which meant then that taxpayers had paid some $1,290 to keep her there. Now, if she had stayed the length of her sentence and gotten out in February, she would have ended up, or taxpayers would have ended up paying more than $870. There was something economically not right with that. And so I went to court with her, and I went through this thing with the judge. To his credit, he took a look at that, and then he decided to allow her to do the rest of her community, or convert the rest of her fees into community service, and allowed her to do it here at the Serenity Church. And while I'm on that, let me say this. I thank God for this church. This is not just another church. I said that from the beginning, and I meant that. This is a church that's of the people, by the people, and of course for the people. And it is the people's business that we transact here at this place.
Reverend Rose, how do you view the probation system? You talk about the monies. So apparently the system is taking advantage of the poor people. Am I correct?
Here's what you have, George. You've got two systems. You've got the state probation system that deals with felonies, and you've got the municipal court. They deal with misdemeanors. The private probation system deals with misdemeanors. But here's what you've got. They don't say to the poor people, look, you don't have money, if you don't have a job, you still have to keep your appointments. But there is no law in Georgia against poverty, which means then that they cannot send you to jail if you don't have money to pay for your probation fees, period. But they don't tell you that. And poor, ignorant people, particularly young black people, are afraid that if they don't go down there and take the money as they're asked to, they're going to go to jail, so they don't go. Now, they get caught in a catch-22. If they don't show up, then they get violated and sent to jail. But they're not going to tell them that. They tell them if you don't come down here and bring the money. So they're frightened and they just don't show up. And that's unfortunate.
Okay. Now, when you had this letter to the editor published, what did you think of the local press? Did you commend them for doing it? Because I'm finding out throughout middle and southern Georgia that many news stories such as that will never be published in a local newspaper. And so I guess I should commend the Valdosta Daily Times for running that article.
Well, I was quite honestly surprised but pleased, because I sent it in one day and it came out the next day. And perhaps because they saw the value of it. I don't know. I don't choose to comment on their motives, as they don't do mine. But now, I want to be clear about something. Poor people, and black people in particular, who are ignorant and don't have an education, don't know what's going on, they are taken every day. When I leave my house in the pre-dawn hours and drive down Ashley Street, I pass perhaps as many as 15 businesses, all geared to make the poor people poor and to make the poor people poorer. Title ponds, rent centers, rent the wheels, pay here, buy here, pay here. All of these businesses are in the poorest neighborhoods. They are owned by the rich and the powerful, who at the end of the day take the profits out, take them to the suburbs, and then leave the inner city or the ghetto to be patrolled and by police officers, and they expect the police officers then to take care of the properties that they left here until the next day so they can come back and start over again. It is wrong, and I don't like it.
Thank you. Hold on a minute. Reverend Rose, as I think about this church, and I've been around church almost all of my life, how do you feel about your membership in this church in terms of them allowing you to deal with the political aspects of the community? Because a lot of churches, the membership will not allow the pastors to get involved in the political arena. So what do you say to your members, your congregation?
Well, let me say this about this church. It is, in fact, an unusual church. Everybody that's involved in this church understand what this church is. It was designed to do what it is doing, not within the walls of this church, but on the outside of its walls. So we don't come here to feel good on Sunday morning about feeling bad on Saturday night and knowing we'll be no better off on Monday morning. So when people walk in these doors, they understand that this is a different place, and they expect to learn something here that they did not know before they got here. That has not changed, and that will not change as long as I am the senior servant here. And I'd like to say one other thing. Nobody has titles. Titles often get in the way of people becoming one and really relating to each other. I'm Floyd, that's Joel, that's Percy, she's Bessie, the list goes on. Do we respect each other's work? We do. But we're all servants of the people, period. And that's what we call ourselves. And that's what we are expected to do. And I say this to the leadership of this church. Look, we are here not for ourselves, but to serve the people. And we're here for them, and they are more important to us, and we're not more important to them.
Reverend Rose, I asked this question that I'm about to ask you. I asked Minister Louis Farrakhan this question in Macon, Georgia. In 1990, I was still in the armed forces then, getting ready to retire. He did a message called Stop the Killing. And he gave me about 7 minutes of his time, and I asked him this question. And I feel led to ask you the same question. What are you doing to ensure that this church, your life and legacy will remain after you leave?
Well, there's a young man, his name is Jeremy Henry. I couldn't love him anymore if he were my own son. In fact, he calls himself Robin and calls me Batman. He's in Morehouse College now. He preached his first sermon here, and we assisted in him going to Morehouse. He will graduate not too far down the line. When he gets finished, he's going to come back here and be under me for a while, and then I'm going to give him this church. I have no reason to believe that he's not going to carry on the legacy of what's happening here, because he called me. I didn't call him. He called me, 18 years old, and wanted to talk. He came, didn't say anything about himself, listened to me and civil rights stories and our history and our involvement with the King movement and all of that. And then he volunteered to play for this church. Wouldn't take one dime. And in fact, he turned down $450 a week to stay here, to play for me for nothing, and to help me grow a church. And I told him that I wanted him to take this church. And the people all know that. After all, you know, I'm 76 years old. Was 76 on last Saturday. And so that's what this is about, and I'm excited as I can be. I'm as excited as I can be.
In closing, Reverend Rose, what got my attention, as I said before, and I was touched by the article by a local pastor here to address the issues of the probation system. And that's why we wanted to do this interview. But I want you to close with the beef of your response being towards the Equipment 10+2. As you know, Representative Tyrone Brooks, G.B.R, and the president of the SCLC, Charles Steele, was over in Brooks County, and you was there. And what is your take and final words concerning the situation with the Equipment 10+2, Lula Smart winning her case, 30 to 40 charges all being dropped against her, and she was found not guilty on any of them. Close us out with your response on that and any other remarks you want to give us.
Let me say this. I was there from the beginning. In fact, it was some of us who dubbed the Equipment 10, and then the Equipment 10+2. I was there when they were charged. We went over and I went inside the jail with Ms. Diane Thomas. When she came out, we planned a rally. I believe that Wednesday night. That may have been on Monday. We planned a rally that Wednesday night, and it was a huge crowd there. We also took a walk on the 1st of December from that same church down to the courthouse, where there was a big rally on the courthouse steps. Now, they had charged the Equipment 10+2 with multiple counts, all felonies, multiple counts of voter fraud. And Lula Smart was their best shot. Those of us who were in the loop knew from the beginning they had nothing, and this was about one thing and one thing only, and that was to discourage black folk from voting. After all, the Board of Education, the Brooks County Board of Education, was the largest corporation in Brooks County. And my God, people like Dr. Leonard gave up her job at the school teaching and started driving all the way to Waycross and back every day so that she could run for a member of the school board. She did that and she won. Diane Thomas gave up her job as a teacher in Brooks County, and she drives even now over to Valdosta to teach so that she could run for a position on the school board. They won, and they won. There was a recount. They won again. There was another recount, and they won by a larger margin. And so they decided, even after that now, to charge them. You have to understand, what they were accused of happened in July, I believe, of 2010. They didn't charge them then. They didn't charge them until after they won the general election. And after they had, and I don't know how they did this, found a way to allow these people who had lost in the primary to be put on as write-in candidates on the ballot anyway, and they lost again. Now, Lula Smart was the best shot that they had. They lost that. There were 3 trials. The first 2 ended in mistrials, and the third, of course, ended in an acquittal on all counts. Now, I'm going to say this now, and I'm sure everybody should know by now, there will be no more trials. It's over.
How do you know that?
I know.
There will be no more trials?
There will be no more trials. It's over.
God told you that?
Let me put it this way. There are 3 ways that you fight in the civil rights movement. There is agitation in the streets. That was done down there. There's litigation in the court. That was done down there. Now there's one other way. It's quiet, but it's called negotiations at the table. I've been involved in all three. There will be no more.
Once again, to all my YouTube watchers around the world and in Canada and from foreign nations of the world, you visit this channel, and I want you to know that you just heard this from Pastor, President of Southern Christian Leadership Conference here in Valdosta, Lowndes County, Georgia, Reverend Ian Rose, a man that I have the greatest respect for. Some criticize him because they don't understand him. I have walked with him. He'll be the first to tell you we don't agree on everything, but you see I'm here, don't you? And I'm going to stay with him. And why will I stay with him? Well, you see, when you look at Ralph Abernathy and Dr. King and Tyrone Brooks and the other civil rights leaders, we have to understand in this walk that when Moses went before Pharaoh, there's some things that Moses didn't know, but God did. God told Moses, say, Moses, I want you to go and tell Pharaoh to let my people go. Moses finally found out that it wasn't so much of Pharaoh hardening his heart, but the Bible says that God hardened his heart. And so we got to understand that what we see and what we think has nothing to do with what is. And that's what Moses found out. That if he had not understood, and if God had not made it clear, Moses, that you are not hardening his heart. Satan is not hardening his heart, but I am hardening his heart. So what does that mean to you, Brother Ryans, and to others in the civil rights struggle? It means that you don't know how God has called this man. You don't know how God has called some women to operate and work and get the job done. So all we can do is lift up those freedom fighters in the way God have given them to work. And so if they're just a flea, and if you see him just hopping around, leave him alone and let him hop, because he's hopping for God. In the final analysis, God will get the glory and the victory. And out of Reverend Floyd Rose's life, I remember he came here at the death of Willie James Williams. I shall never forget that. And he stood strong. He stood boldly when all of the other ministers stood behind him. But when it comes to staying the course, Reverend Floyd Rose stood the course. And I want to commend you, my brother. I'm not going to wait to tell you later. Thank you for everything that you've done, my beautiful brother. And thank you for this interview. Once again, this is the Ghetto Free Press. I'm George Boston Rhymes, the voice, and we report what others ignore. Bye-bye. We go.